So I'm sure I've said this before, but I'll say it again. Don't try to do what we do here. You do you. What's up, Lazy Dog fam? Hope everybody out there is having an awesome day. It is Thursday, December 1st here in South Georgia. Got really cool last night. It's warming up today. It's supposed to warm back up the next week or so. In today's video, I'll show you what's going on in our raised bed garden here. A lot of good stuff going on. Maybe even do a little harvesting. But before we do that, I want to share with you something interesting I saw on social media last night that kind of got me thinking a little bit and how it applies to us as backyard gardeners. So you may or may not have seen this guy before on Facebook, Instagram, some type of social media. He goes by the name Liver King, and he's all about promoting, eating like our ancestors did, these primal diets. He eats liver pretty much with every meal, or says he does. Eats a lot of bone marrow, even eats testicles, all kind of stuff that he says is what our ancestors ate, and it's going to make you be nice and strong and healthy. So this guy's been going around on social media, at least seems like for the last couple of years, promoting this diet, promoting this lifestyle. Well, the news came out, I think it was yesterday or maybe the day before, that this guy is taking a lot of steroids. When I heard that, I was thinking, you don't say. Now, if you've ever worked out in your life or been to a gym in your life, you know that you don't get to looking like that just by working out every day and eating right. There's something else going on there. Now, this wasn't a surprise to most people, but I'm sure it was for some people who had bought into what he was preaching and maybe even started eating some of this crazy stuff every once in a while. So as is most often the case, if it seems too good to be true, probably is, right? So how does this apply to us as backyard gardeners? I think there's some interesting parallels here as far as what we see on social media and YouTube in the homesteading and backyard gardening community. Now, I'll be honest, I don't watch a whole lot of other YouTube channels. If I do watch other channels, it's usually more from a marketing perspective as opposed to just a entertainment perspective. But as I'm, going through YouTube, maybe trying to find an answer to a specific question, I stumble upon other channels that are kind of doing similar things to what we do here. Now, not all of them, but some of the creators slash influencers, whatever you want to call them, in the gardening and homesteading community will give you the impression that everything they put on their table comes from their homestead, whether it be from their backyard garden or animals they raise. And while that is certainly a great goal to have, it's not necessarily realistic for everybody. So just like Liver King's ancestral or primal diet isn't very practical or realistic for most people, trying to grow every single thing you're going to put on your table from your backyard isn't very realistic as well. But I feel like in the age of social media and the age of YouTube, garden creators, myself included, create some kind of unrealistic expectations. You watch this stuff and you think you've got to try to duplicate it, when in reality, that's going to be hard to do, and oftentimes it results in failure, and then people get disappointed and discouraged, and maybe they don't want to keep trying. So I'm sure I've said this before, but I'll say it again. Don't try to do what we do here. You do you. You do what works on your scale, what's going to allow you to be successful at whatever level that is. If we weren't making these informational and hopefully educational videos about different gardening techniques and trying different things, we probably wouldn't have 9 or 10 garden plots. I'd probably only have maybe 2, 3, 4 garden plots. I wouldn't need all these, but we like to try a lot of different things out here. We like to show you different methods, show you different techniques, but just keep in mind that this is not a realistic situation for most backyard gardeners. Yes, it is nice to have all these different plots and be able to rotate things around, plant a lot of cover crops, move the chickens around, but if we weren't doing YouTube, I probably wouldn't have this many plots. I need this many plots to be able to show you all the different ways that things can be done in the backyard garden. Different techniques, no-till, cover crops, chicken tractor grazing, raised beds now. That's why we have so many plots, so we can show you a variety of different ways to do things. So don't get too caught up in comparing yourself to what you may see online. Don't think you've got to duplicate everything you see on your homestead. Don't set the bar too high for yourself. Make realistic goals so that you can meet those goals and slowly increase what you're doing as you learn going forward. If that means starting out with just one raised bed with some kale in it and just learning how to grow kale, eating kale once or twice a week, do that. Start small, learn from your experiences, and slowly grow into something larger scale where you can get closer and closer to providing all the food you need from your backyard. And speaking of food in the backyard, now let's walk around to all 13 of our raised beds here, see what we've got going on, see if we can snag anything for supper tonight. So in our first round raised bed here, we've got some watermelon radishes, also got some weeds as well. Old friend Mr. Chickweed in there, need to get him out of there. Now, these are looking pretty good, but they're not large enough to harvest yet. There's a few of them that are about ping pong ball size, maybe a hair bit bigger, but with watermelon radishes, you can usually let those get a little larger than traditional radishes. So we're gonna let these get a little bit bigger, and then we'll probably just start harvesting a few every day or so. Probably saute them up in some butter. Should be pretty good. And I've got a plan for this bed. As soon as these radishes are done, I think I'm going to plant some leeks in here. Then we have this bed of beets and chard, and it looks okay, but I wish it was doing a little bit better. I don't understand why this one isn't performing up to the level of some of the other beds. We use the same soil mixture in all these beds. This little sliver right here, I've replanted it a couple times. Not really sure why hardly anything wants to germinate right here. But our chard, not ready to harvest yet. Some of those leaves are getting close. I need to let those get a good bit bigger. Our beets over here are doing decent, but don't really have any big beets forming yet. I can see kind of some little dime-sized beets down there. Still a ways to go on this. The leaves look healthy. Just seems like it's growing slower in this bed, or things are growing slower in this bed than they are any of the others. Now if we contrast that beet and chard bed with this one here is looking phenomenal. So we've got lots of parsley here, pretty much ready to harvest. We could let it get a little bit bigger. Really good flavor on that stuff there. Got some celery over here that's looking really, really good. The stalks aren't quite big enough to start plucking a few there, but it won't be long. We can start snagging a few from the outside of these celery plants here, using some of that. I may wait or let some of them get full size, but some of them we're just going to pluck a few stalks at a time, kind of do a cut and come again harvest on some of those. And then in our last round raised bed, we've got some spinach and we've got some fire ants. So growing some spinach, growing some fire ants over here. Need to try to take care of this, but it hasn't been spreading too much. You can see it kind of swallowed up those little 2 rows there. We've still got lots of good spinach growing. Still a little ways from being able to harvest any of this. We'll let these leaves get a little bit bigger before we start harvesting them. We got really good germination here, really nice full rows. And once these plants get a little bit bigger, I think it'll pretty much kind of cover this bed, especially if we can get rid of these ants over here. Then moving on to some of these long skinny beds here, we've got all parsnips in this bed. Had to replant some of these. You can see the ones that came up during the first planting, those fresher seeds we used. We bought some more seeds to plant where those old seeds didn't germinate, and they're just starting to pop now. And it looks like we're gonna have some nice full rows there before too long. So getting good germination on that replanting, and we'll definitely have a staggered harvest here. Those over there will be ready before these. That'll be all right, because we're not gonna eat them all at one time anyways. Then we've got our 2 beds of carrots here, which are starting to fill in nicely. I was a little concerned about my germination at first, but now that the plants have gotten bigger, these beds are looking nice and full, and I think we're going to have plenty of carrots. So we got purple and yellow carrots in that bed, and then 2 varieties of orange carrots over in this bed. This bed isn't quite as dense as the other one, but I think it's going to be dense enough, especially once these plants get to full size. So in those first 7 beds, it's mostly stuff that's not quite ready to harvest. Haven't been eaten really off those 7 beds yet. A lot of that stuff won't be ready until early next year. But these back 6 beds are the ones that are giving us a lot of good groceries. Now, some of this stuff I need to get on the ball with harvesting a lot of it. Kind of got behind a little bit. You know, we have Thanksgiving, have a bunch of leftovers we're eating, so we weren't doing a lot of cooking. But now that we've kind of went through all those leftovers, it's time to start cooking some of these good groceries here again. So here we've got our flash collards, which are ready to harvest again. As you can see, got some nice big leaves on those. So need to crop those bottom leaves, do another harvest on these pretty soon. Now, when I planted these, I wasn't quite as frugal as I should have been with my raised bed space in this particular setup here. And it being the first time I've grown in these, I knew that was going to happen a little bit. I probably could have squeezed another row of collards in there or another row of something else. In the future, I'll probably scoot those collard rows closer to the end and then plant something else in the center there. Don't really need any more collard plants than this, but I think I could have fit something else in there. So had I planted 3 rows in that collard bed, probably would look a little bit more like this, which is a much better use of the raised bed space in my opinion. So we have 3 rows of kale in here, and you can see we've got a nice dense coverage there. We're maximizing our garden space with the 3 row setup here. Got a lot of kale we need to harvest here. Been eating a lot of kale. This stuff is growing fast, growing well, and it's nice and pretty and green, good nutritious groceries here. And then for the last bed that is this particular style, the shorter rectangular bed, got a lot of stuff in here. Got some zinnias, got some basil still kicking. Some of it got burnt back on that last frost we had, but still a good bit of it kicking around in there. Got some beautiful dill over there. Got some cilantro here we've been eating a lot of, but this stuff, crazy to think, this is winters in South Georgia. This stuff is looking like it wants to bolt, and we're supposed to hit 80 degrees next week, so I wouldn't be surprised if it did bolt, but we have enjoyed quite a bit of it so far. Now moving on to these taller raised beds, we've got a lot of lush growth in these. This one here has got some red cabbage. We may have planted that too dense, but I like the soil coverage that I'm getting there. And then we've got some big rutabaga plants here. We've already harvested the leaves on these one time, and probably about to harvest the leaves again. Still a ways away from getting some decent sized rutabagas. You can see we're getting there, but still a long way to go before we get about a softball sized rutabaga, which is what we want. Now, a few days ago when I was at the grocery store picking up a chuck roast to cook with some of those delicious fall taters we grew, went ahead and grabbed some smoked pork chops they had on sale, because one of the best things to eat with greens is some smoked pork chops. And I think these rutabaga greens right here would be delicious with some smoked pork chops tonight. So just like we did the first time we harvested these greens, we're just going to come through here and kind of get some of these bottom ones, get some of these bigger leaves here, tear them off, leave some leaves on the plant. We don't want to take all the leaves, just want to take some of them. And as you can see here, harvesting those leaves one time already didn't hurt a thing, didn't compromise our root production. Still getting some nice root development there. The greens grow back. That's why rutabagas are such a great crop, because you can eat so much off of them. It's kind of like having a kale plant that eventually produces a nice root that you can eat as well. See if I can get me a couple bags worth here. Enough to have a nice little pot of rutabaga greens tonight. Brooklyn says these are actually her favorite greens that we cook, because they're a little sweeter than any of the others. So if you never tried rutabaga greens, or you want some greens that maybe are a little sweeter, not quite as bitter as some of the other stuff out there, you need to give rutabaga greens a try. Alright, so we got us a couple bags there. That'd be enough for supper tonight, maybe even a little snack for lunch tomorrow. Now you can see in there a little better how big those rutabagas are actually getting. You can see just how much we take off the plants, and these will grow back just fine. Sometimes we can get a third leaf harvest off these before we actually pull these things up. Now this next bed is probably the one that looks the best in my opinion. We got this one full of all different types of lettuce here. None of them have really made a full head yet, but Brooklyn did come out here, I think it was last night before last, got a few heads of romaine here that we used on some tacos, And we'll probably just start harvesting some of this every couple days, eating a lot of salads and stuff. We'll let some of it eventually stay in here and form a nice full head, but there's plenty of good eating lettuce in there right now. So we've got the Adriana butterhead right there. That's the oak leaf lettuce. If you've never gone oak leaf lettuce, it is beautiful, really tasty too. That's the Muir leaf lettuce there. We've got our Sparks romaine here. Just looks like a standard romaine. And then this red lettuce here, nice pretty red lettuce, is a variety called Cherokee. I really like that one too. So besides using the lettuce for things like tacos and sandwiches, what I usually try to do is keep most of the things I need for a salad in the fridge. So all I have to do is come out here, grab me a head of lettuce, rinse it off, cut it up, and I'm good to go. So I'll boil about a dozen and a half eggs at the time. Peel those eggs, just keep the boiled eggs in the fridge. Cook about a pound and a half of bacon at the time. Keep some sliced bacon there cooked in the fridge. Then all I got to do is come out here and get a little lettuce, some lettuce, shredded cheese, bacon, and some boiled eggs. Got a nice, delicious, nutritious meal there. And then in our last raised bed, we've got more nutritious greens here. This thing is just full of good groceries. We'll start out over here. We've got our Savannah mustard that we've already harvested one time. You can see it's growing back really well there. I am keeping a real close eye on my pest damage in here. I do know if we're going to have some pest pressure that these will be the first to be wiped out. So keeping a close eye on that to see if I need to hit those with the Azera one more time. Everything else in here seems to be fine, but these get eat up really quick. Not quite ready for another harvesting on those, but it won't be long. Then we've got our pak choi here, which we could let get a little bit bigger, and we probably will for some of these. But I think I'm going to go ahead and snag a few of these to add to those rutabaga greens tonight. Now there's several different ways you can grow or harvest this pak choi. One way would be to not transplant it like we did here, but to just direct seed it really densely over a 1 or 2 foot wide path there. And once they got up about, 3, 4, 5 inches tall, go along there and just cut the entire bed. They'll grow back and you've got a nice little batch of mini greens there. The other way to do it would be to come in here to these individual plants, and you could just kind of pluck or tear off some individual greens like that if you didn't want to harvest an entire head. The way I usually do it is just come in here and cut the entire head, because we have plenty of them here to cut. So I'll just cut the entire head at the base of the soil there. We've got a nice pretty head of pak choi. Not a lot of dirt on there to wash off before we eat that. So I snagged and bagged a few of those there that we can throw in with our rutabaga greens tonight. Add some nice texture to that. These stalks right here are really, really tasty. Have a nice little crunch to them. So that'll be good mixed in with those rutabagas. Lots of different ways you can cook these. You can saute them down real quick like you do mustard greens. They don't take long at all to cook. Maybe put a little soy sauce in there. You can use them in a stir fry. You can also use the leaves, eat as greens, raw or cooked if you want to, and then save the stalks and use those like celery. I've done that before at like a football tailgate. Use some of these stalks here, cut them up like little pieces of celery, dip them in some ranch dressing or some vegetable dip, and that's mighty fine as well. So I hope you enjoyed the video today, both our discussion on setting realistic expectations or realistic goals for your backyard garden and our little raised bed garden tour here. And let me know in the comments below kind of what your goals are going forward in the next few years for your backyard garden, and maybe how close you are to being able to grow a majority of the vegetables that you eat. As always, you can find links in the description below to all of our affiliate partners. Got some coupon codes for some of those companies so you can take advantage of those discounts. Don't forget to go check out our website, lazydogfarm.com, where we've got our garden blog, recipes, hats, shirts, all kind of good stuff over there. If you did enjoy the video, be sure to subscribe, hit that notification button, like, and share, and we'll see you next time right here at Lazy Dog Farm.
Oh, farewell, by the beauty of your life,